So today I'm joined by Luke. Good morning, Luke. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Luke, thank you for your time. So I know you're about to go into your class soon, but could you tell us a little bit about your job, both, with teaching and also your musical career?
Sure. I'm a full-time physics teacher at high school. I've been teaching for about 8 years, 7 years. I don't remember the exact amount of it all blurs together. Uh, and I taught at a private school for a while, and now I'm at a public school. Just more students, more opportunity to do something. Um, And on the side, I'm also a hired musician. I play guitar, mostly do gigs, and mostly do Sundays for churches and stuff like that. And I've been doing that for over 10 years, I would say.
Very nice. So music and physics, they're going kind of hand in hand. That's cool. You have like the analytical, calculative side and like the creative brain too.
Yeah.
For for teaching, do you prefer teaching private or public schools?
So one thing I always tell my students is that in a private school, the students are extremely high caliber, right? They're paying for their education, so
Yeah.
they take it seriously to some extent. Whereas in a public school, you get a lot of kids who just are there because the government tells them to be there.
Mm.
But the support for staff from other teachers, administration is such a big deal at a public school. It makes it so easy to teach because I know whatever I do, people got my back. I'm covered as long as I don't do anything nuts or
Yeah.
bad. Whereas in a private school, if I give a kid detention, I have to explain myself to parents and tell them, well, I'm sorry. This is why I
Uh,
gave. In a public school, it's your kid's crazy. Oh, you got
yeah.
detention. The
Yeah, their parents are like, oh, give him more detention.
pay is better in a public school than it is in a private school.
Which you wouldn't think. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah, and there's no longevity. There's no tenure. There's no job security. You can get fired on the spot if the school downsizes. You're out. So
How did
in
you
my
find
field,
your,
that's not as big of a problem, but it is a problem for a lot of teachers.
how did you find your way into teaching and especially in physics?
So when I was graduating with my degree in physics, my degree is actually in physics with a focus in quantum mechanics. And
Nice.
I was graduating and I had both forms in my hand, the teaching program and the master's program for quantum mechanics. And I was like, which one should I do first? So I sent them both in. And I said, whichever one comes back first is what I will do first. And teaching came back right away. So teaching is what we did first. And now I'm in my master's to go into my master's in physics.
Hey, nice. Wow, that's you're going to be juggling quite a bit, but that's so awesome. How
Yeah.
do we talked about this a little bit before the recording, but some challenges in case some of my students are interested in pursuing like teaching for high school and such. What are some challenges you encounter teaching online? Of course, there's a million hurdles, but for yourself.
So there's a couple challenges, what I would call teaching challenges and subject challenges, right?
Hmm.
Teaching challenges are challenges that all teachers will face, and subject challenges are challenges that people in a specific subject will face. So teaching challenges are like, are your students even there? Like if I mute myself and turn off my camera, how do you even know I haven't left?
Yeah.
Am I even teaching people? Because half of them all have their cameras turned off, and technically it's not legal for me to require them to have them on. So
Yeah.
I
I,
can't push that too far.
Mhm.
So that's the biggest hurdle, is keeping them engaged, keeping them there, keeping them looking and engaged with the material when there's so much distraction right in front of them in their fingertips. Another big challenge is their attention span, which we talked about beforehand, that it's already short in the classroom, and you know the internet is right here. Why am I listening to you? Let me just go real quick and check stuff. So that's the other challenge. And then with subject, my subject is physics. It's a lab science. How do I get them to do labs?
How do you get them to do labs? It's all hands-on or like,
Right.
that's
I
that's
I basically look around the garage and look for junk, and I go, oh, there's a box, there's some tape. I got the ball over there, and then I come up with a lab using junk that they can get at home, Because of equity, I want everyone to be able to have access. So I can't ask them to go buy things. So every lab has to be made of junk that they find at home and they can put together and demonstrate a concept like a ramp, a ball, a protractor, some basic stuff. And there you go. Measure the speed of the ball at the bottom of the ramp or something like that.
You're insanely creative and resourceful. That's brilliant.
Resourceful is definitely the way to go. I think that's also part of public school teaching is that you don't have infinite money, so you have to start getting resourceful.
Oh yeah, I can't even tell you how much I've spent like for my own wallet just trying to get like a little desk, like this, setup. Yeah. But I don't want to take too much of your time, but I also wanted to ask you about the music side because I have a student named Michaela. She's young. She's like, 18 and she plays piano and she's thinking about possibly pursuing that route. But do you think it's realistic for someone to say like, okay, I want to pursue music and solely music for my entire career? Like,
I think they can. A lot of the musicians I play for
huh?
and hire me are full-time musicians. And all they do is they play gigs. Like, so every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're playing different kinds of gigs. They'll play a club Friday night, or a venue Friday night, or a quinceañera, or a wedding or something, or a birthday. Saturday they'll do it again, and then Sunday they do churches in the morning, and then in the evening they have another venue, like another wedding. So their weekends are packed. They never have time off, and
Wow.
they're always during the week always learning new songs, because when you go to like weddings and stuff, you're
Mm.
given a list of 100 to 200 songs that potentially the people can ask for. So you have to know them off the top of your head, which means if you want to be a pro musician, it's not just about playing Beethoven, but it's also about learning the ins and outs of your instrument. And as a keyboardist, as a pianist, that's the
Mhm.
hardest, because that's the one that carries the music. Like if you play Michael Jackson, all of it is basically keyboard. So don't just learn the chords, don't just learn the notes, but learn the sounds and how you get those sounds. And all of it is part of the process of becoming a professional musician. So it's a big field. There's always going to be a need for musicians and for artists in that to create in that way. But you have to be open your eye to kind of the possibilities of maybe I don't just play in a band that I started with my friends, but
Mm.
also I'm hired here, I'm hired there, and I spread out and I make money for a little bit from everywhere. So
I
that's kind of the way to do it that
I
I've
think
seen.
that's good. Yeah, I think that's a good point. First of all, yeah, I didn't even think of that, like the repertoire of music that you need to cram inside of your brain for all these events.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Because people at any time could just like ask you to
Yeah,
play
just
songs.
I don't play weddings and stuff because
Uh,
they're on demand, whatever song, and you just go, let's go. You gotta know it, and the keyboardist has to have all the sounds and stuff pre-programmed. So you need there's a lot of input, a lot of time dedicated to it, right?
Jeez. What hardships have you experienced in like your music career? Like especially starting off, I would say.
I think undervaluing what you do is a big hardship. I, for a long time, as I said, played in Latin churches where you're
Mhm.
not paid to play. The average Latin church is very small; they don't have a lot of money. But I grew up in Latin churches. I'm from Latin America, and that's where I felt my calling is. So I played there for a long time without making money until I switched over to an American church and started making money. And I thought, wow, if I did this often enough, I can make a living out of this. It's not a little bit of money. And I think the biggest obstacle is people all over the place. When you're creating something, people will always want to get in on it for cheap or for free, right? Um,
So true.
they,
Yeah.
if you draw really well, they'll want you to draw them for free, and maybe they're a friend and you draw them for free. But if they're a stranger, you should charge them because you have to develop a standard of who you are and what your time is worth. And
Mm.
so I think undervaluing yourself, undervaluing the time you've spent learning your craft and mastering it is a big deal. And the second thing I think is the time itself. Finding the time is tough, especially as you get older, you get more responsibilities, and it's harder to peel away to spend time honing your craft. So when you're young, that's the time to really focus in on that craft and develop it as fast, as quickly as you can, so that as you get older, you just go and do your job and you don't freak out about having to learn a million songs, you know them. Now
Yeah.
you just focus on, oh, do I remember it? Oh yeah, I do remember that one. This is how it goes.
What about like the aspect of networking? Because for you to get these gigs, I feel like, of course, your social skills play such a crucial role. How did you kind of build momentum, let that snowball?
If you're in a college and you're studying music, I think the network of friends and professors, if your friends go to gigs, uh, go support them. And then
Hmm.
eventually, if you're good at what you do, you will get a gig. And then your friends will come support you. And that support network is extremely powerful. For my experience, it's been through churches. I bumped into someone at a Latin church, and we got to talking, and I tried out, and I got in. When I got to an American church, I went up to the worship leader and I said, "Hi, I play, and I'm at this caliber, and this is what I do." They had me audition, and through just playing there, I got to know people who play for Nas, people who play for Kanye, people who play for whatever, who are all just hiding in plain sight on a Sunday morning. And so you get to know this network of people, and they always need emergency. Our drummer backed out. Please come help us. Oh my gosh, we need a keyboardist for this event really quickly. So I think the more amicable you are, the stronger, the kinder your personality, and the more you flow. Remember, as a musician, we want to show off, but really it's about the song. So do we all just come together and make a good song, or do you show off and everyone else hates you?
That seems to be a common thread for all the interviews I've been hosting, like with directors of sales, like people in the medical field, engineering, etc. And everyone says it's important to have that kind of sense of personal connection with whomever you work with, because that gives them insight into you, like who you are, and whether or not you can jive with like the company energy and such. And then especially in this case for music, it seems like it's such
Yep.
a niche field where everyone kind of knows that, the connections are endless there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luke.
So if,
Oh, yeah.
if you can get connected, that's the main thing. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're actually from South America?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah. I'm from
where?
Argentina, born and raised. So I came here. We came to Mexico when I was like, I don't remember, 8, and then eventually we made our way up here illegally, and then eventually we got our papers. So we're good now. We're all good.
Very nice. And for yourself, for a lot of my ESL students, they have concerns about accents and the discrimination of that. Like I've spoken to people within the biology department yesterday, and they expressed truthfully, and also in IT, and they said there will be judgment cast on students, unfortunately, or people entering the job work field. What advice do you have for them?
Um, Confront it. A Latin accent is seen as less intelligent. Certain accents we think, oh, that guy must be very smart, right? Like a German accent or a British accent. And there
Yeah.
are accents that we look at and we go, is that guy smart at all? There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of stereotyping based off of the color of your skin, based off all kinds of things. Confront it, run toward it, and I would say if you want to be a representative for your people. So as a Latin man, I want to represent Latin America the best I can, right? And I tell that to my students. As a Latin man, I want to be a good representation of what it means to grow up and be a good Latin person, good contributing member of society, and be a good person in general. And if you're a black man, an Asian man, a woman of anything, you want to be the best because you don't want people to look at you and see, this is why. Because people will jump to that. People can be mean, and
Yeah.
that's fine. They have their opinion, but I always believe I got to be beyond reproach in who I am, right? People should look at me and say, you know, they can't say that, oh, it's because he's Latin, or oh, it's because he's a man, or oh, it's if they say anything, it's because he's dumb. That's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, you bring up a valid point, and that is the reality of our world. Like, I feel like even for ESL students, beginner level or whatever level I teach, I kind of see myself as being an ambassador for the United States, because for some this might be like their first impression interacting with like an American, and America has many stereotypes, especially with Trump on on the throne. But, you know, but yeah, same thing. I want to put my best foot forward, have a good impression, and show that a lot of those stereotypes aren't true. But it's hard. It's hard because you always have to be cautious of the social dynamic that you
Yeah.
mentioned.
When I was getting my degree in physics, there were five white, so it was 9 of us that graduated with physics degrees. There were probably 200 biologists, I don't know how many hundreds of nurses, chemists around 80, and then 9 physics majors. And I was the only Latin one. There was two people from India, one Asian woman. I think her name was Charlotte, actually. And the rest were all just white men.
Wow.
White men. So, you know, we were genuinely just ambassadors for our people in the middle of that classroom. And then when we graduate and we go out onto the field, people will look at you and say, "You're a physics person, but you know, your last name isn't like Hawking or some white name, you know?" Okay, sure. But let me show you what I know, and then you tell me.
Yeah, I feel like especially in the world of sciences or even, you know, sometimes in finance too, business, that it's predominantly like white, you know, males. And so like for a lot of my female students, I think there might be concerns about that kind of culture clash and also like working in that type of environment and knowing how to like kind of hold your own while still being amicable with your coworkers and cohort and such.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said for that stereotype to play against it. For example, women in the music world is a lot more rare than men. And who knows? Because there's nothing in a woman's ear that's less distinguishing of the frequency of sound than a man's ear. So if you said you have a female student who wants to be a musician.
Yeah.
Okay, she's at an advantage because most, for example, most churches, for example, they have female only nights, and they're always looking for only female musicians.
Hey, no way. That's awesome.
Period. So it always never works out. It's always like one female bassist, and then everyone else is a guy. And it's frustrating to them. And they're like, "Come on, ladies, we need to learn more music." And it's like, you're right. Yeah, jump into that field and take over because it isn't equal, and it should be. There's no reason for it not to be. And the same with every field, right?
True. Nice. Well, Luke, I know you got to head out soon, so I'm going to take two quick questions. One is, do you have any advice for students in terms of the actual interview process? Well, let's say for education or for music. Well, I know you already mentioned about being amicable, but what else in terms of like, you know, looking at it with a more critical eye?
Yeah, I would say that if you're interviewing for a job in education or an academic job, I think that beyond showing your expertise, show your experience. Show your knowledge isn't just the facts that you read out of a book and that you remember. Your knowledge is how you apply those facts. Facts are just facts. That's not knowledge. Knowledge is the application of those facts. So a lot of mistakes I see with people interviewing, we're actually trying to hire a physics person to help me, is that they try to just show that they know all the physics in the world. And it's like, okay, well, how would you do that in a classroom? How would you tell a kid that any of this matters?
Yeah.
And then they freeze up and they go, "Well, it does." And it's like, well, does it? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. We live in a coronavirus world where all that matters is our health. Tell me differently. And, show your personality. If you're going into any business, people want to work with people they like.
Yeah.
They want you to be knowledgeable, but they also want you to be a person that they can, work with on a day-to-day basis and not find irritating and not find, oh, this person talks down to everyone. So show your knowledge through your experience, through your, how has this come to be a part of your life, right? Your personal experience. In the musician world, I would say that if you're interviewing and if you're, going through a tryout process or something like that, don't freak out about standing out. Freak out about fitting in. Don't try to be the standout player that everyone's like, wow, incredible, the best ever, because you're only going to get hired for a few gigs where they need that. You want to be the person that they go, that guy knows how to lock it in and make this sound, or that girl knows how to lock it in and make the sound pop. They know what they're doing. They know when to stop, when to go, when to up, when to down, and be a team player. And I think the main event, everyone wants to be a team player. Everyone wants people they can play with, bounce off of. Even in an interview, right? You want someone to interview that is, easy to bounce questions back and forth and get
Yeah.
responses. You don't want someone who's going to sit there and say, I think it's good.
Yeah. That's such a, I think, a crucial part, because I'm showing my students, like I'm interviewing people that I don't know, that I'm meeting for the first time, like you. And already I feel like, your personality, you're easygoing, you're very intelligent, resourceful, creative, and you have to find a way into the conversation with anyone. And I've been meeting with people with so many different personalities. Some are a little bit more rigid. They're more like business, straight to the point. Others, can offer their time like this and be a little bit more relaxed and easygoing. So that's going to be the same kind of environment or dynamic students will face when they enter the job market and have to interact with their coworkers or clients that they've never met and such. And I like that you also mentioned with teaching, people might be knowledgeable in the sense that they have all that information stored. Same for professors in college. They may be brilliant, but if you're not able to effectively teach it, like break down complicated information into like a simple, digestible way for your students to understand, then, maybe that profession isn't such a great fit. Some people are more like research based and not so much in teaching.
In teaching, it's called classroom management, right? That's the first thing you want to have is you may be the most knowledgeable. And I've worked with someone where I shared a classroom with this teacher who just had zero classroom management and zero effective teaching strategies, right? They're EFTs or whatever they're called. And there's entire studies done on them. And this guy would just sit there on a block schedule of 3 hours, PowerPoint presentation for 3 hours.
Oh,
And
no.
and this was at a private school where you could get fired. Students complained nonstop to the point where they brought me and the department chair up to the office and said, we're going to fire this guy unless he changes. And we tried to tell him. We met him in the parking lot, probably looked like a bunch of goons waiting to jump or something. We met him in the parking lot. We're like, hey, man, you got to change because on Friday they'll fire you unless students like you. And it's not about doing what students want. It's about diversifying what you do and having management skills that adapt to the environment you're in. Yeah, you can be the most knowledgeable, like you said. And if you can't communicate effectively or manage a classroom, then who cares?
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like with teaching, maybe you feel this way. It's like you're a comic on stage. You have to read your audience quickly and you have to react to their energy. You have to like sprinkle in some humor, like have like a good presence, positive, high energy, that kind of.
It's very much an acting gig because if you do a little research, you'll find that teaching is one of the professions with the highest rates of depression. But teachers don't show it because they have to act it out. They have to act like this is great, the world is great, everything's great, and learning is great. You're a great kid, Timmy, who spits on the floor in my classroom. That's you, Timmy, but you're a great kid.
Yeah. That's so true. And, that's, I think, especially in teaching, because all eyes are on you, but, same with several professions. And when you have meetings and such, you kind of have to have that game face on. Okay, last question, Luke. What are 3, what do you say, like work personality words that best describe you?
Workplace personality words?
Like work personality, for example, you're innovative, like that's one.
Oh, I'm never good at these. I think I'm oh man, I think snarky.
Yeah,
think
right.
my students would definitely describe me as snarky, but I think honest and understanding. One of the things I tell my kids is, I am here to educate you. Your grade is not a measure of how well you have learned this information. It's more a measure of how well I can, probe at your brain to see if you learned it. So education is disconnected from grading. And I'm focused on education. So I want to know whether you're learning. If you're worried about your grade, we can talk about your grade. We can figure something out to get you on the track you want to be on. But you got to show me that you're learning.
Yeah.
and I try to be fair. So if a question is unfair, I'll drop it. The test, Mr. Galan, we were not ready for that. It was way too early. All right, we'll drop it. We'll take another one in a couple weeks and we'll see what happens. And to me, it's physics is a hard topic, and the world is full of other priorities right now. So, right now, it's all about, I tell kids, take care of yourselves, be safe. This is the important thing. Love on your family, love on those around you, because you never know what's going to happen. But scientists, doctors, those are the ones that are going to find a cure for this one. And if you're not educated, you will not be the scientist or doctor to find a cure for the next one. And we need you to be. So whether, it's all good to prioritize, loved ones and family and safety and health, but you got to think to the future. One day this will come back in another form, in another way. And will you be the one to save us, or will you be the one who dropped out because you wanted to make sure that your cat was safe?
Yeah.
It's just about being kind and being understanding in any job, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a million deadlines in every job, and there's a million bureaucratic things that you need to complete. Are they all important? Absolutely, to your boss. Are they all important? Really? Probably not.
Yeah.
So relax and be a person first, and be a kind-hearted person and do right by people as you do your job.
Yeah. I very much feel like we're on the same page in that capacity, because I feel like grades are a systematic, like institutional built thing. And I tell my students, like, yeah, you could get straight A's, but let's say how are you going to actually use that language and apply it, for example, English outside in the real world? That is your best like sense of, like gauging how much you've actually learned. So yeah,
Yeah, I
honestly.
mean, think about it. How many straight A kids in my high school ended up working at Stater Brothers, ended up
Yeah.
whatever jobs. Like, grades are not a measure of your intelligence. Your intelligence can be reflected through your grades, but
Yeah, I agree. Well, Luke, I want to just say thank you for your time, and I really respect what you're doing. It is not easy teaching youth and like instilling that kind of sense of positivity or contagious like passion for science, because as we know in our world today, it's needed more than ever. So thank you for everything you're doing inside and outside of the classroom.
no, thank you for having me. Thank you for
Yeah,
the
well,
interview.
take good care,
Thanks.
Luke. Thank you.